The opinions expressed on the following program are strictly those of the guests and do not necessarily reflect the views of WCZT, Regional Media, Coastal Broadcasting, personnel, or advertisers.
Money Talk with Melanie features lively discussions of a wide range of global, domestic, and kitchen table financial topics. Guest interviews include entrepreneurs, CEOs, and politicos who are experts in their fields. Be sure to listen up. This is important because it's your money. Your money. Be sure to listen to Money Talk with Melanie. Money Talk with Melanie. Wednesdays, 7 to 9 p.m. Eastern Time on 98.7 The Coast.
Money Talk with Melanie is brought to you by the Tax Mama, Eva Rosenberg. Visit taxmama.com.
And welcome to another edition of Money Talk with Melanie. I'm your host, Melanie Collette, broadcasting live from beautiful Wildwood, New Jersey. Thank goodness it is spring. I hope you are ready to make the impossible possible this evening. Tonight, we're going to learn how to play life's metagame from Executive Coach Steven Feinberg. And then in the 8 o'clock hour, if you think your budget won't allow for that dream purchase, listen up to financial literacy coach Russo Foster, who will reveal a few tricks so you can afford anything. So get ready for some bankable advice this evening on Money Talk with Melanie. Before we do that, I'm going to try another monologue. We'll see how it works out. The first monologue, opening monologue, is about Tucker Carlson's departure from Fox News. What really happened with that? Now, I'll tell you a little story. I do, those of you who follow me know that I also do commentary on Newsmax, usually on American Agenda, but FYI tomorrow morning, I'll be doing it on a different show called National Report. But I digress. On my way into the studio on Monday is when the word came down that Don Lemon, as well as Tucker Carlson, got canned. And it's a whole different energy when you're in that similar environment. Many people who work at Newsmax, used to work at Fox, you got makeup artists and just behind the scenes people that know a lot of things. So there were many, many theories floating around as to what ultimately led to his departure from Fox. And one of the things I need to let you know in just the interest of honesty is that I'm a huge Tucker Carlson fan, or as one of the hosts called me, president of the Tucker Carlson fan club. I've always been a big fan, just his honesty and just the way he just calls people stupid to their faces when they're saying very stupid things. I just find hilarious. So wish I had that kind of courage that he had. So, but I'm sure that Tucker's going to be just fine and land on his feet. But it was very interesting. So all we did for that 2-hour block that I was there was talk about the departure of Tucker Carlson and Don Lemon. Unlike Don Lemon, Tucker Carlson was the highest rated host of all of cable news. So you would think that he would be untouchable, but this is not so. So what really did happen with Tucker Carlson? Now, I when I'm on American Agenda, I'm there as a pundit. They want to know my opinion. And I was doing some research on this topic today, and I found several articles that agree with me. My opinion was kind of poo-pooed. I saw a Washington Post article that talked about how because of the Dominion lawsuit, a lot of his personal emails got subpoenaed. And of him saying not very nice things about his boss. His boss says things that I could not ever repeat on the radio because it's a family show. So, I mean, he really, does not like his bosses. So, anywho, here's kind of my commentary on what really happened. As I said earlier, the world of conservative media has been set ablaze with news of Tucker Carlson's departure from Fox News. The controversial host of the popular Tucker Carlson Tonight Show has been praised by many for his bold and unapologetic conservative views. However, tensions between him and Fox News upper brass, most notably Rupert Murdoch, have been simmering for months, leading to this shocking decision. Tonight, we'll dive into the circumstances surrounding his departure and try to answer the question on everyone's minds. What really happened to Tucker Carlson at Fox News? At the root of the tension between Carlson and Murdoch was Carlson's stance on Ukraine and his increasing far-right views. Rupert Murdoch, who founded Fox News in 1996, has long been known for his moderate views on immigration, climate change, and other issues. Tucker, on the other hand, has become increasingly vocal about his opposition to immigration and support for far-right movements in the United States and abroad. This clash of ideologies created a rift between the two, with Murdoch becoming increasingly unhappy with Carlson's views. Another factor that contributed to Carlson's departure was the show's coverage of the election fraud allegations. Fox News was at the center of the controversy during the 2020 presidential election when it called out Arizona early for Joe Biden, a move that enraged many supporters of Donald Trump. Carlson himself questioned the validity of the election results, and his coverage of the topic led to a rift between him and Fox News upper management. Fox News CEO Suzanne Scott informed Carlson on Monday that he would be parting ways with the network. This decision was made by the Murdoch family, who are majority shareholders of Fox News. The decision was not surprising to many insiders who had been hearing rumors about Carlson's imminent departure for months. However, the news still shocked many of Carlson's fans, myself included, who flooded social media with messages of support. I received several text messages from friends and direct messages saying, what in the world has happened? I'm canceling Fox Nation. I can't believe that they would fire Tucker. Personal communications released between Dominion voting system lawsuit were also keyed to Carlson's separation. This was my position that I took on American Agenda this past Monday, as the text messages and emails and commentary that were said about management were pretty incendiary, pretty bad. In the lawsuit, Dominion claims that Fox News was complicit in spreading false information about the company and its involvement in election fraud. Some of the communications released during the lawsuit implicated Carlson in these allegations, and some sensitive material remains hidden from public view. It remains to be seen how this will play out in the coming months. It's going to be very interesting. Tucker Carlson's departure from Fox News has left many questions unanswered. Some speculate that it could signify an eventual sale of Fox News by the powerful Murdoch family, while others believe it's simply a matter of ideological differences. Carlson's departure is a sad moment for many of his fans, myself included, who appreciated his unapologetic stance on conservative values. However, it's important to remember that the world of media is constantly changing, and we may soon see Carlson pop up in a new role on a new network. Only time will tell what the future holds for this controversial figure in the media. I'd love to know what you thought of my opening monologue on Tucker Carlson's departure. If you'd like to comment, please do tweet me at Money Talk Mel, or hop on my Facebook page at Money Talk with Melanie. I'm on IG as Melanie T. Collins as well. I think it's going to be super interesting, but like I said in the open, Tucker's going to be just fine. You're listening to Money Talk with Melanie. When we come back, we'll have our first guest, Steve Feinberg, who's going to talk to us about how to play life's metagame from an executive coach perspective. We'll be back in a few minutes.
Money Talk with Melanie on 98.7 The Coast.
What would you say if I told you becoming an IRS enrolled agent is just a keystroke away? It is, with the professional education provided by the Tax Mama. Yes, the Tax Mama offers both live and self-study tax courses to get your new lucrative career off the ground. It's your life, your schedule. Seize the opportunity to excel with the Tax Mama. Right now, visit irsexams.school and discover your path towards becoming a respected tax professional. Tax law, tax practice, it's all covered, along with all of the study tools you need. The Tax Mama is here for your new career. Visit irsexams.school and launch your career today.
Money Talk with Melanie features lively discussions of a wide range of global, domestic, and kitchen table financial topics. Money Talk with Melanie on 98.7 The Coast.
Welcome back to Money Talk with Melanie. Our guest the first hour is Steven Feinberg. He is an executive coach. I want to give you a little bit of background about Dr. Steven Feinberg. He is one of the most influential leaders that play what's called the metagame. Confronting uncertainty, great leaders adapt and win not only by willpower alone, but by first unlocking the hidden game of patterns. They are the first adapters, those who make game-changing, game-winning decisions when uncertainty strikes. I thought this was such an interesting topic. I hope you do too. And it's based on, I'm going to say the theory, but I feel like Dr. Feinberg is going to tell me something different, that our brains are patterning machines designed to connect the dots. Patterns are not a way to change the game. They are the way. First adapters play the metagame by game spotting to see hidden game boards, pattern busting to defy expectations, frame setting to influence others. So in order to create the exceptional, Dr. Feinberg reveals the tool set used to elevate your thinking, accelerate your influence, and create game-changing conversations. I thought this was so interesting, and I almost couldn't stop doing research on it, to be honest with you. So what is his background? Well, Dr. Feinberg is a leading authority on neurostrategy, the field of brains, games, and foes. He advises game-changing leaders and entrepreneurs for over 35 years, including Apple, Google, and Visa, with $250 million in gain and leadership impact. His latest research is on the game of patterns, winning the metagame. And without further ado, I'd like to welcome to the show Dr. Steven Feinberg.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. That was a great introduction.
Oh, I'll do my best.
I'm curious about what you just said.
Which part?
Pick a part, because that's all those things that you mentioned. Was begun with my curiosity about how people do things and why they do things.
Right.
And basically, what I do is I focus on how can people get more. All of us want more, and what I found intriguing is people want more money, people want more mastery, and people want more meaning in their life. And neurostrategy is the focus of brains, games, and foes, identifying the patterns that create the exception. It's like a GPS for the mind. I can give you an example if you like.
I certainly would.
So many years ago, when a lady came to me because she was afraid of snakes. And she had spent $10,000 and 10 years trying to solve this problem. It was a burden. It was real. It was something that she had to deal with.
She ran into snakes that often? Because I don't love snakes either.
She lived in the hill. I believe she lived in Colorado and was up there in the hills hiking a lot. Okay. And I was in the Bay Area, and so she actually came to my office in the Bay Area, and she said, I heard that you could help me with this. And to cut to the chase, in 1 hour, she was no longer afraid of snakes. In fact, I sent her to the Reptilian Center in the Golden Gate Park, which was in the vicinity of where I lived and worked. and we sent it to the Reptilian Center because I like to test my work. And she called me back and she was laughing. And it was cured. It was gone. It was done. And so the interesting question is, how is that possible? How is someone working so hard, diligently, consciously trying to figure out, because the other approaches, well-intended, didn't understand how the brain makes decisions, didn't understand how the brain codes your experience. And so she was her experience kept making her more afraid. Her representation, not her experience, the representation. Because there's lots of people who walk by snakes in a matter of, they stay a safe distance and stay away from them. But
that is what I do. That is my method.
They don't have a phobic reaction to it, right?
Okay.
As an example, so it's a pattern in the brain, and the thing to do is to understand how are these patterns impacting how we do things.
Now,
how do they generate the experiences that we have?
So now, is the pattern person specific, or do the patterns work the same way for everyone? Or is the key identifying? Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I think that's a great question. Are they person specific, or do they generalize? There are some patterns that we know people do. For instance, people who are great leaders, people who do what others say can't be done, which is the title of my book that you mentioned. Those people, there are 3 specific things that they're doing that they use in their patterns. The pattern with regards to the snake, it's grabs your attention because we all have various responses to that. But that pattern is unique to how there's a set of factors in her brain that she's making big pictures. For example, our brains can make big pictures or small pictures. It's as simple as that. And once you realize you have some control over that, all our brains are similarly designed, but it's like, how are we using our brain?
Okay, so so what I hear you saying, if I think I got this right, is that all of our from a general perspective, right? All of our brains work a certain way, and it's a matter of understanding what your brain is doing in that particular instance.
Right. And that's if you're not achieving what you're after, then it behooves us to go, how am I approaching this? What's the how that I'm approaching this that is keeping me stuck?
Woo! Okay, I'm taking notes.
Deal. Good idea.
I'm just saying. And I'll tell you one of the reasons why is because a friend of mine teaches organizational behavior at NYU. And I think he's going to find this information very interesting. So that's one of the reasons I'm taking notes.
Yeah.
But this is amazing. Okay, so I get what you're saying. And at first, when I first looked up, like, what is a metagame, which you're going to share in a moment, I was like, this is not what I'm looking for. But then I went to their website, and then I went back to looking at what metagames are, and I was like, oh. I said, I got it.
Right. You think about, like, recently Warren Buffett said, and I'm paraphrasing him, talking about inflation. He said, someone asked him, well, what do we deal with inflation? It's a real thing. It's a real problem. It's a concern. He said, but focus on your own game. Focus on raising your game. Focus on the skills and frameworks that you need. Like typically people refer to communications and self-growth, so grow yourself, grow your business. And all the patterns that will share are talking about how you can change the game on the inside. There's the inner game and an outer game. There's 2 games going on all the time. Okay,
so you're an expert in neurostrategy. We should probably start there and talk about what the heck neurostrategy is.
Right, so neurostrategy focuses on brains, games, and foes. So how's your brain pattern things? Your brain is a pattern engine. I think you referenced that earlier. So we're always generating patterns. Your brain cannot not pattern. It has to pattern. It's in order to make sense of the uncertainty you face, you encounter. And so your brain is always trying to figure it out. And so the patterns, sometimes those patterns come from superstitions. People make up stuff. People construct things in order to put order into their life. But it's not, like most superstitions, they're not true. But we construct them, and then we build models, we build ideas or theories about that, or belief structures about that. So we understand brains. And then there's games. There's the games we play. A game is a pattern of interaction. It's a story with players on a game board that has rewards, rules, and objectives. And usually there's usually some kind of threat or deception or power going on in that game.
Very true. Now, I want to stop you for 1 second because I'm hoping. Now, I spent more time than I should have today diving into this. I'd spend a fair amount of time doing show prep, but if it's something that's particularly intriguing, I'll just go right on down that rabbit hole. So, and that's what happened today. I want to make sure that people are following you because this is what happened. I was like, what does this have to do with games? And then when I started reading it, I'm like, oh, so. And I want to make sure that I understand it and can say it clearly for the audience is that just like in a game, you're reacting to certain things a certain way as you are confronted with them, for lack of a better word. And you have a pattern as to how you react to that same stimulus, that same situation, just like you would in a game.
That's right.
Okay.
That's right. So there are these patterns of interaction. Let me back up even a step further. How did I get into this?
Yes, please tell us.
As far as to understand. So my dad didn't want me to go into the family business. You see, he was a big-time bookie in the 1950s and 60s. And in one game in New York City, he lost 10 large. That's $10,000. Yikes. On a game. In bookie parlance, $10,000 in bookie parlance, 10 large is bookie parlance, right? That's $95,000 today, Melanie, right? And so here's the thing, and it all started up again. There was a sports book, it's not the type that read books; it's a sports bookie.
Yes.
And it all started up again. He won money that day. By the end of that day, he actually won money. And it all started up again the next day, 24/7 gambling. And so it was a roller coaster, if you will. And the intensity still affects my brain. And so I was trying to solve how do you deal with all this. And part of what he was good at was understanding how you deal with uncertainty, how the decisions that you make. And the way bookies make decisions, the ways my dad is like, what did he have in common with these people? I studied, interviewed, and worked with and consulted with world-class leaders, astronauts. The foreword to my book is written by an astronaut, two-time space shuttle pilot to the International Space Station, CEO of Apple, NFL players, Consumer Hall of Fame winners.
You have to believe that those people think differently, right? Like it would never, I said, you have to think that those people think differently than a common person. First of all, the thought of space travel completely freaks me out. And I feel like my brain can't even wrap my head around the concept, even though I know that it happens. But then you have a person like Elon Musk, for example, that's like, not only do I think we can do it, I'm willing to plunk down millions of dollars to prove it. That's a different level of thinking.
That's right. It's totally different level of thinking, totally different. So you want to elevate your thinking to be able to look at things the way they look at. Because if you shoot for the stars, even if you don't make it, you can achieve a lot. You can create a lot in your life and create what's meaningful. So with as I was trying to understand how how do you solve these things? What's going on? How do they make decisions in the midst of uncertainty, in the midst of difficulty? And I discovered that these folks that I mentioned and how they're similar to my dad is that all are first adapters. The first adapter is a person. It's not sometimes people think it's a first adopter, first person in, or an early resolver of something, an early, someone who, an early first responder. Those people are heroic in their own way. Well, first adapter is someone who is the first and fastest to think about what's the game and how do you win on this game board. So they're gaming out the logic of the game board that they're playing. It could be parents in a relationship, could be leaders, could be in business. As an example, parents who don't let their kids handle adversity, they step in, rob them of being able to learn how to do it. And not only do they do that, but they incentivize them to be dependent.
I'm a former teacher, and I ran into that problem all the time. I used to talk about it all the time. Stop protecting them. Let them mess up now. It's the only way you learn to navigate.
Excuse me. I'm sorry, stepping on you.
Go ahead.
The message to the kid on their game board is you're not capable. And so we don't want it. It's unintentional, right? People make mistakes. It's an unintentional mistake.
Wow.
People are caring. They're trying to help their kid. It's unintentional.
Okay. That I have, and as much complaining as I've done about this situation, I never thought about you're communicating to the kid unintentionally that they're not capable. Wow.
Right.
Okay, that's very
the
good
game,
stuff.
Right? That's part of a game that's being played out. Right? Is this communication situations? What's the real message that's happening here? What's really happening underneath what we think is happening? So there are these three areas: the game spotting that these first adapters do. They play the metagame. It's a game of patterns. It's game spotting, pattern busting, and frame setting. Those are the three things that they do over and over again, in which they are capable of gaming out the logic of the game board. Right? What's the game board? What's going on here? How do we win here? How do we do it? And you can do this whether or not you're a parent or in a relationship or a leader or a business, making business entrepreneurs and business decisions.
Okay, that's amazing. That is incredible, and that's essentially what I read. But I wanted to hear you articulate it. But I was like, "Whoa, wow, wait." So, let me go back for 1 second. What kind of class would you have to? Because I have a business degree and a master's, and I had a couple of behavioral classes in there, and I don't recall learning anything like this. So what kind,
Yeah, that's because you weren't in my class, Melanie. This is it, right now.
Because I didn't have you as a professor.
That's right. And, and not only does my class have these things, but people would be, if my students weren't laughing, I would stop them and ask them if I was off or something. Were they having a hard day? My humor just off for the day, which either or could have been true.
That's okay. That's amazing. Okay, I get it.
So it's in the field of it's crossover. It's interdisciplinary. It's psychology. It's business. It's organizational behavior. It's organizational development. It's the wide ranging. It's neuroscience. So it's wide ranging fields, and it's picking what. It's an applied approach using the tools from each of those ideas. Social psychology of influence, for example.
Okay. So now an elite performer or game changer, those are the people that you described earlier as the first adapters, right? Those are the people that when confronted with an uncertain situation, instead of, which a lot of people do, either A, becoming still, right? Becoming too still, like paralyzed, frozen, and then they don't move.
Right.
And they stay in that anxiety place, right? They stay in that
Right.
place of anxiousness instead of making a move. Or the other way, these first adapters take a step back and look at the field or the game board
Right.
and see if they can recognize any patterns. And and the way you described it earlier in the intro is, these patterns can come from anywhere else in life, but they're all patterns.
Right.
Oh, that's good stuff. that is very
The
good
thing
stuff.
is, these patterns, right? They're patterns that create the exceptional. That's what I'm interested in. And so, how do you create the pattern? And so that ability. Like I asked the astronaut, Greg Johnson. I said to him, "So, Greg, when you're sitting on that rocket, it's like, aren't you nervous?"
Right.
And I said, most of us would be nervous and sitting, blasting off. And he said, I said, how do you feel? What's going on? He said, focused. I completely focused. I've been prepared. I'm ready. I know what to do if something goes wrong. I know what the mission is. I keep my eye on the prize and where we're going.
That is
and
excellent.
His brain is set, by repetition, by doing things. He knows when the alarm goes off. He said that. He told me, when the alarm goes off, you know exactly what to do. Your brain has something called procedural memory. So your brain so you had a set of procedures in the book. Well, he transferred those set of procedures in the book in practice into his brain. So his brain knows exactly what to do, where to go to take action to make it work out.
Excellent. I love it. You're listening. We're up against the commercial break, Dr. Feinberg. Such an interesting conversation. You're listening to Dr. Steven Feinberg. She is, where'd I get that from? I apologize. He is talking
My
to us.
diversity training.
Your diversity training, sure. Dr. Feinberg, I should have went that way. Dr. Feinberg is a neurostrategy authority, and he's teaching us about the field of brains, games, and foes, and how we can use this method to improve ourselves and think more like these elite performers. I like it. You're listening to Money Talk with Melanie. We'll be back in a few minutes.
Money Talk with Melanie features entrepreneurs, CEOs, and politicos who are experts in their fields. Money Talk with Melanie. Money Talk with Melanie. On 98.7 The Coast.
Want a dependable career instead of a job? Tax Mama is here for you. You can become an IRS enrolled agent and learn everything there is to know about tax practice and law with the Tax Mama. Right now, log on to irsexams.school to explore a sample class. The Tax Mama IRS enrolled agent course is accredited by the Internal Revenue Service for continuing education and may be paid by unemployment or social services agencies. Why wait? Don't just get a job. Get a career by becoming an IRS enrolled agent through the Tax Mama today. Visit irsexams.school now.
Money Talk with Melanie features lively discussions of a wide range of global, domestic, and kitchen table financial topics. Guest interviews include entrepreneurs, CEOs, and politicos who are experts in their fields. Be sure to listen up. This is important because it's your money. Your money. Be sure to listen to Money Talk with Melanie. Money Talk with Melanie. Wednesdays, 7 to 9 p.m. Eastern Time on 98.7 The Coast.
Money Talk with Melanie is brought to you by the Tax Mama, Eva Rosenberg. Visit taxmama.com.
Welcome back to Money Talk with Melanie. We're talking to Dr. Steven Feinberg, who is an expert on neurostrategy. We are discussing how we can win the metagame with when it comes to our career and really in life is what I'm gathering from this conversation. If you missed the first part of this conversation, you definitely want to go back when it's posted as a podcast and listen to this conversation. Just very interesting stuff. So, Dr. Feinberg, before the break, we talked about how the difference between these expert thinkers and everyone else is that they are what did you call their first? You tell me the phrase again.
First adapters.
Thank you. That they're first adapters. I couldn't think of the phrase. That they are first adapters. Now, I was wondering during the break if elite performers tend to be first adapters. Is there a phrase or a name for people who are not elite performers? I don't want to be mean, but like less than awesome performers, just don't perform.
Well, they're playing. There's four different kinds of games people can play. And some people at the lowest level, some people are struggling and they're defeated. They play a defeat, and their brains are always sorting for what could go wrong, and more importantly, or more fundamentally, is that things won't work out. That's the way it can never work out. The next level up are people who are working really hard. They're hard workers. They're doing the best they can, but they stay within the status quo. They stay within the known, the familiar, and they're reactive to situations. The next level up are the people, the next game is people who are really good performers. They're excellent at what they do. They're skilled. They get things done. They do better than most. But what holds them back from being at the elite level is they have a notion in their head, a rule, if you will, that it's good enough. Where I am is good enough. And that holds them down. And beyond that, the people who show up fully, the people who are first adapters, are people who are relentless about playing the metagame. They play to win. They play in a big way. They're trying to bring other people with them. They're not narcissists. They're not authoritarians and none of those things, but they're trying to bring people together to the next level, or the higher level, to be able to have decisions that have impact, to accelerate their influence, to have game-changing conversations. These are the people who are first adapters. And so it's a different level.
I want to be a first adapter.
Yeah.
But I am so not a first adapter. So I think, so there probably are there's people I'm sure that are like me who are listening to what you're saying and saying, okay, how can I go from being mediocre to being a first adapter? Like, is that something, are we just assigned whatever our patterns are, or can we recognize that our pattern is in a certain space and aspire to being a first adapter and train ourselves to recognize patterns?
That's it. Shut the book. You're done.
I'm good.
Game's over. No, none of that is true. Right? It's like there's possibility, right? Your brain can find, if you reset, there's something in the brain called neuroplasticity, meaning it can learn, it can do different things.
Yes,
most of us think that we're stuck with, up to a certain age and we can't learn anymore. We can't do anymore. Like I had an executive, he was in his 50s, and I was 65 at the time. And he said to me, Steven, I can't learn anymore. I'm done. I've achieved a lot. He was a CIO, really smart guy, top of his class, great guy. And he said, I've done as best I can, and I can't learn anymore. Help my people. And I thought to myself, I won't say his name, but I'll call him Joe. I said, Joe, I'm 65. I learned 3 things today. What are you talking about?
I'm 52, and I definitely feel like I'm running out of time to learn stuff. Like I feel like I don't know, so I don't know so much, like so much I don't know, and I'm like I got to hurry up and learn everything. I want to learn it all.
So the thing about it is there are 3 things, like there's game spotting, pattern busting, and frame setting. So he was stuck in his patterns. He didn't bust his patterns. We can only achieve, we can only perform based upon the pattern that we're in. So you need to address the pattern, identify the pattern, and then change it. So, for example, there's 3 things you can do. You can change the rules, change the attempted solution, or change the meaning. Let me give you a quick examples of each of those. Change the rules. So I had a CEO who had inherited a business where it had 12 strategic initiatives in it. And so I talked to him about, you're persisting in something that may not work. It's kind of like, you remember those Chinese finger cups?
Yes.
So you put your fingers in and you try to get loose. And what do? Your attempted solution is to pull harder.
Right, and that just gets
harder,
you more
get
stuck.
Tighter.
Right.
You get more stuck, right? You persist in what doesn't work. It's like the expression, if at first you don't succeed, try again. You use willpower, right? And that seduces us. It keeps us stuck, right? So you do more of the same with willpower, but that's not the way these first adapters operate. That's not the way to get to find a way around, to get unstuck from the patterns you're in. So he had these 12 strategic initiatives, and he put them up on the board, and he said, which ones of these are we persisting in, doing what isn't working, expecting it to work, pushing harder willpower, and which ones is worth persevering in? And so he made a distinction between persistence and persevering, and that's huge. That changes the rules. I had another guy who had changed the rules in his head. He was an executive running his company, and he acted like a general, telling people what to do and being miserable himself, and like always on himself. And then he changed the rule in his head. He said, I should be inspiring my people instead of ordering my people. And he became like a music conductor. He changed the rules in his head, and that shifted the game dramatically, right? So,
okay. I'm starting to get it. Okay.
That's changing the rules, changing the attempted solution, like the finger cuffs. I had another client who he was a senior director at a $4 billion company, and but it's just people. We're all just people. These are patterns. It happens to be in that context. But, he'd start off telling the executives, well, the problem is X, Y, and Z. And the next time he met with them, he said, the problem is A, B, and C. And then next time it was, the problem is CDW. The problem is UNY, right? He'd always begin he was an engineer by training. And so I asked him, why do you start every sentence? I mean, every 20th, 15th sentence, he'd start off with the problem is. I said, why do you do that? He said, I'm just trying to solve the problems, right? He thought of himself as a problem solver. But in fact, he was perceived by the executives as a problem maker, because he'd always bring problems to them and put it at their feet that they were the causing this because they weren't solving it. So he wanted to get a promotion, and his boss, his direct boss, thought he was great. But the rest of the executives viewed him as a problem maker. Not only didn't they want to give him the promotion, they wanted to fire him.
Because all he ever saw was a problem in their eyes.
All he ever said, his language, was the problem is, right? And so what I did with him, we worked with him, and he was a very smart guy and was like a sponge, drank it up very quickly and took it in. And we started to bring issues, but make suggestions and talk about what was working and how they were figuring things out, and putting the focus on something different than just what the problem is as the full scope. So his attempted solution of saying the problem was the problem. And by the way, he got a promotion. He became a vice president.
Nice.
And the stories from there. So so the first example is change rules, then change the attempted solution. And the third is like change the meaning of something. Like I had another guy who was basically one person was don't rock the boat, right? They had the meaning, and they go, well, I don't want to rock the boat because things could get you in trouble here, rather than you can discover something useful. You can discover something different. Let's do it in a way that's skillful. So a VC, one of the VCs that was one of the top VCs in the country that I interviewed for the book, and he said one of the things he looks for when he's investing in people, not only are they smart, not only do they know what they're doing, but are they willing to look stupid?
Oh my gosh.
And he said,
right?
Look, I want people I don't want people who are being crazy or loose cannons or being self-destructive. I'm not talking about that. But their willingness to look stupid, because if you're not afraid to look stupid, then you're just going to be doing more of what we already know. The marketplace already has what we already know.
In order to stretch, right, You have
Right,
to be willing to look a little stupid. And
Right.
I've talked to, different problems with women entrepreneurs and women in the workplace and et cetera. And the reason why I bring that up is because women seem to have that particular issue that they don't stretch. Like they will look at a job description, for example, and if they don't have one of the things that are listed in the job description, then they're not even going to apply for that job. Whereas a dude can look at the same job description and not have three of the things, and he's like, oh, I don't see any reason why I can't totally get this job. So like just a different kind of mentality.
Right. They change. The mentality means framing. They're framing the situation differently for themselves and for the recruiter or for the hiring manager, right? So changing the frame changes the game. That's the ability to do that.
There you go.
In fact,
the
one of the
producer
things
Mark
said,
shaking his head. I think he said, "I think Dr. Feinberg is right about that."
you use one of the you use a word. It said stretching. In terms of metagames, the core move in a metagame is to stretch, not shrink, right? And so you're always finding a way to stretch and change the meaning. I had one lady, vice president of quality, smart as can be, and she kept on getting like 65% of the time she got approved. In other words, about 35-40% of the time her initiatives she got rejected. And I worked with her, and I realized that what she was doing was framing the message in terms of what they were going to gain rather than the consequences of not doing the job. So it was about framing it differently, and all of a sudden she went from 65% yeses to 85% yeses, right? A huge difference. And her CEO said, well, she's so much smarter now. And let me tell you this. Let me tell you, Melanie, she wasn't any smarter. She was already smart. She just didn't understand how to frame her message. There's a skill set that people need to learn.
That is excellent. That is so good. No! Mark, the producer, just told me we only have 2 minutes left. That's why I just said no. We are not done this conversation, sir. Oh my goodness. That is intriguing, and you are so very right. Okay, as I was doing research today, I ran into something called the shutdown syndrome. In the last 2 minutes, take 1 minute and explain what that is, and then take the other minute and explain where we can find you in your books. Okay,
so the shutdown syndrome is something. I asked all these executives, what's the number one foe of your executive? It turns out to be a triple-headed monster, a triple-headed dragon of criticism, mediocrity, and the familiar, staying within the familiar. So when shutdown syndrome reduces your performance, reduces your quality of your decisions, and reduces the outcomes. It's all written about in my book in detail and what you can do about it. The book is called Do What Others Say Can't Be. You can get a free chapter on my website, which is www.stevenfeinberg. Steven is Steven, and Feinberg is F as in family, EIN as in Nancy, B as in boy, ERG.com. So there's a free chapter there. And also, there's also a free assessment that you can now take called the First Adapters Scorecard, in which these 3 fundamental skill sets of game spotting, pattern busting, and frame setting are evaluated. 9 questions, and you get a result, and we'll get it out to you. We'll probably get inundated, so we'll get it out to you as quick as we can.
So when you see the First Adapter Scorecard with my name on it, make sure I get it. Make sure I get it back. I just put it on my to-do list. That is going to happen for doggone sure.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you so much. That was amazing. I knew it would be, especially when I dug into the topic. I was like, oh, this is going to be good. Thank you so much.
Let me say one final thing,
please.
if I might. One final thing is fortune favors first adapters. So if you want fortune in your life, whether it's meaning or money or mastery, fortune favors first adapters.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Dr. Feinberg. I hope you come back.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I will.
This is important because it's your money. Your money. Money Talk with Melanie. Money Talk with Melanie. On 98.7 The Coast.
Unemployed or underemployed? Have no fear, the Tax Mama is here. Fuel your best career move with Tax Mama. Tax Mama can help you become an IRS enrolled agent with our next live 6-month course beginning in May 2023. Or you can start now with on-demand courses. It's your career on your schedule. Job opportunities are plentiful. Tax Mama offers unlimited access to her tax mentoring portal with all the testing materials you need to overcome any test anxiety. Get your 3-year tax education in 6 months and become an IRS enrolled agent through the Tax Mama. Visit irsexams.school. That's irsexams.school now to get your best career started today.
Money Talk with Melanie features lively discussions of a wide range of global, domestic, and kitchen table financial topics. Money Talk with Melanie on 98.7 The Coast.
Welcome back to Money Talk with Melanie. We are headed into the second hour. If you missed the first hour, then you missed Dr. Steven Feinberg. A fine hour, not because I was an awesome host, but because he was a fantastic guest. And he talked about how to win the metagame. And you're probably saying to yourself, what in the world is the metagame? Well, that's why you have to make sure that you subscribe to Money Talk with Melanie at your favorite places that you listen to podcasts, or you hop on a 98.7 The Coast website to pick up the Money Talk with Melanie podcast, so you can hear a replay of what Dr. Steven Feinberg had to say. He is an executive coach and a neurostrategy specialist. You might also be wondering what the heck neurostrategy is. He also explains that. Trust me, you want to hear. It's an intriguing conversation. I think it's life-changing. I took notes. I very rarely take notes with my guests. Some guests I do. They're just that good. He was just that good. I opened up a document and took notes. It was that good. So you want to check out, again, Dr. Steven Feinberg, the first hour of Money Talk with Melanie. Our guest, the second hour, is Jill Russo Foster. She is going to join us in a few moments. She's a financial literacy coach, and she's going to reveal a few tricks on how you can afford anything. Some real bankable advice to see how you can afford anything. So, like I think I said it in the last show and at the beginning of this show, that I'm trying to mess with the format a little bit. Now, when the show was just a podcast, I used to have something called the Money Talk Minute. And that was basically a monologue that talked about an important financial topic. So I think that's what the second hour monologue is going to be. And I have to think of something very clever for the first hour. I'll be back with that one next week. But the Money Talk Minute today is going to be about the importance of estate planning and some good tips for estate planning. You want to leave a legacy and not a legal battle when you transition onto whatever it is you believe that you transition to. I would say the next life beside the Lord, but wherever you transition out of this earthly life, you want to not leave things uncomfortable for your loved ones and have them fighting over anything. We're not just talking about stuff. We're also talking about custody of kids. We're talking about, all kinds of things. And it's not fun. Nobody wants to talk about taxes or dying. Like, none of that is a good time. But it's a necessary evil in this whole adulting thing. So here's my little Money Talk Minute regarding tips for estate planning. You've worked hard all your life to provide for your family and loved ones. But what happens when you're gone? Without proper estate planning, your assets may not go where you intend, and your loved ones may be left with a legal battle instead of your legacy. So why do so many people put off estate planning? Perhaps it's because it can be a complex and daunting task. But fear not, I am here to offer some tips to help you to navigate the process with ease. First and foremost, familiarize yourself with your state's probate laws. According to expert Janet Zander of the Greater Wisconsin Agency on Aging Resources, she recommends doing your research in advance. Different states have different rules regarding wills, trusts, and inheritance. By understanding those laws, you can make an informed decision about your assets and also avoid any surprises that could come down the road. Next, have those tough conversations early and keep them brief, open-ended, clear, and respectful. Nobody likes to talk about death and taxes, but it's important to have a plan in place. This includes discussing your wishes for your assets, for your final arrangements, and who you want to be in charge when you're gone. Expert Anthony Stewart of the University of Wisconsin's Milwaukee's Helen Bader School of Social Welfare suggests involving estate planners or case managers to coordinate family meetings and fill out documents. This can help alleviate stress and ensure that everyone is on the same page. Remember, estate planning is about keeping your loved ones in control of who will own your assets and be legal guardians for your children. It's about leaving a legacy, not a legal battle. All final wishes should be respected, and that includes any cultural or generational differences that may come into play. By planning ahead, you can ensure that your wishes are carried out in the way you intend. Finally, avoid making estate planning about yourself. It's easy to get caught up in your own agendas or become pushy and temperamental when it comes to discussing sensitive topics. But remember, this is about ensuring the well-being of our loved ones after we're gone. By staying open-minded and respectful, we can make the process less daunting and more productive. Estate planning may seem complex and intimidating at first, but with the right guidance and mindset, it can be a fulfilling process that leaves a legacy for generations to come. Start by familiarizing yourself with probate laws, having open and respectful conversations early on, and keeping the focus of your loved ones. In the end, it's not about the assets we leave behind, but the memories and impact we make on those we love. After all, isn't that what truly matters? And that's today's Money Talk Minute. I hope you guys enjoyed that. Please let me know your opinions at Money Talk Mel on Twitter, at Money Talk with Melanie on Facebook. Hey, if it's something long and drawn out, feel free to email me at moneytalkwithmelanie@gmail.com. Apparently it's out there. People email me occasionally asking about the show, believe it or not. But this is a really important topic, and I know it's dicey, right? Like, nobody wants to do that. Actually, Prince, I'm dating myself now, he's one of my favorites. But Prince, the very famous artist, died without a will. I always assume, especially as someone who does financial services as a bit of a side hustle, I always assume that people who are wealthy or have a lot of money or whatever always have that stuff already done. And I have found that it is really untrue. People just don't like to talk about it. They don't like to do it. And I get it. It's not optimal, but think about the stress that will be relieved for the people that you leave behind. And that is really the key. It will be, and even quite frankly, before you transition, having your estate planning in place. Part of that includes whether or not you want to have an NDR, a DNR rather, a do not resuscitate order should you get sick, long-term care that you need to have in place, possibly if you end up having a long-term illness. And this can be, long-term care could be a fall. Like, a lot of times we think because we're young that we're not going to have a long-term illness or long-term disability or anything like that. But that's not true. And by we, I'm not including myself. But people who are young, I am definitely middle-aged, but people who are young tend to think that they don't need to have those things in place and don't need to estate plan. But particularly if you have children, who is going to get them? You don't, God forbid, want them to end up in the system. You probably want your kids to go to a loved one, to go to family. These are things that you really, if you're being a responsible adult, need to think about. And that's why I wanted to make sure that I addressed that very important topic of estate planning. And of course, you can always go back and listen. Oh, and I do want to say one more thing. A lot of people don't know this, but reach out to your town or municipality or county may have something called a surrogate that is very helpful with these things. And there are, one of the suggestions that I made in my monologue is that you reach out to a counselor. There are tons of them out there that you don't even have to pay for, like social services type people that'll do that, especially for older people. They'll come to your house and kind of facilitate those conversations, which are very important. So I hope you found that helpful. Our next guest is Jill Russo Foster. She's a financial literacy coach. She's going to reveal tricks on how you can afford anything. Can't wait to talk to her. You're listening to Money Talk with Melanie. We'll be right back.
Money Talk with Melanie features lively discussions of a wide range of global, domestic, and kitchen table financial topics. Money Talk with Melanie on 98.7 The Coast.
What good is being retired if you're bored or broke? It's time to establish a new lucrative career where you can work from home and help your family, friends, and community fix IRS tax problems, audits, and balances due. Fuel your best career move with Tax Mama. Tax Mama can help you become an IRS enrolled agent with our next live 6-month course beginning in May 2023. Or you can start now with on-demand courses. Get a 3-year tax education in 6 months and become an IRS enrolled agent through the Tax Mama. Visit irsexams.school. That's irsexams.school now and get your new career started today with the professional education provided by the Tax Mama. Yes, the Tax Mama offers both live and self-study tax courses to get your new lucrative career off the ground. It's your life, your schedule. Seize the opportunity to excel with the Tax Mama. Right now, visit irsexams.school and discover your path towards becoming a respected tax professional. Tax law, tax practice, it's all covered, along with all the study tools you need. The Tax Mama is here for your new career. Visit irsexams.school and launch your career today.
Money Talk with Melanie on 98.7 The Coast.
Welcome back to Money Talk with Melanie. I'm going to use a football term called an audible. It's shocking that I know anything about football, but I do, which means that we're going to do something completely different than I said we were going to do before the break because through no fault of our own, we were unable to reach our guest, Jill Russo Foster, but I hope to bring her back at another time. So we invited Dr. Steven Feinberg to come back so that we could further our conversation about ways to win at the metagame. And quite honestly, I did not feel like I was done with him anyway. So I'm really excited that I'll get to talk to him for the second hour. And he was really kind enough to jump in at the last minute, like when you think that you're done your workday, and it's like, oh no, actually you have another hour. That's basically what what Dr. Feinberg has done for us. So I really appreciate it, Dr. Feinberg.
You bet. As you know, like more. When we began before, I said the human brain, all of us want more. Right? And I'm not talking about being greedy. I'm just talking about we want more meaning in our lives. We want more mastery over what we do. We want more money. Excuse me. And so here we are. We want more.
Yes. And I definitely want it more. So I'm not like super mad. Usually I'm really mad if a guest is a no-show, but I'm not super mad because I get to continue my conversation with you because it's such a deep topic. And for those of you who are just joining us, we're talking to our first hour guest, Dr. Steven Feinberg. He is a neurostrategy expert, and what he was talking to us was about his latest research on the game of patterns and winning the metagame. And he, just to kind of introduce and frame the topic, he talked about how much of our decision making and many people who are elite performers have win the metagame by recognizing patterns, particularly when they are faced with a decision that needs to be made or a problem that has come up. And it's a really good way to strategize if you just think differently and don't don't play the game the same way all the time. Did I sum up the metagame well enough?
Are you writing the supplement to my book?
Oh, we can talk about that later. But yes, and it's especially you gave some very good examples of just how you can recognize these patterns, recognize the patterns in ourselves. First of all, recognize what patterns we usually use in certain situations, because we do if we stop to look for them.
Yeah. So let me give you a little bit of framework of how, or back up a little bit about the first adapters and why the term first adapters is the ability to adapt to our environment is something that's critical for all of us. And the people who are most adaptive can win. So you're confronted by uncertainty, and how do you go about dealing with that is the people who are successful in life adapt. The people who don't adapt, it's like the old dinosaur image, adapt or die, right?
Oh, wow, right?
I was at my acupuncturist, and she was talking about, I was talking about my work, and we were discussing it a little bit, and she said I just got my smoothie. They just brought it out to me.
Live radio, ladies and gentlemen.
Live radio.
When you call the guest back after he's supposed to be done with his interview, he may be in the middle of ordering his smoothie, and I'm perfectly fine with that.
I apologize.
Enjoy. No need to apologize.
And it's a very good smoothie, by the way. But what she said to me was, in Chinese medicine, one of the understandings is your ability for the body to adapt internally, so the organs can adapt to the stresses that it encounters, and to adapt to the external environment that you deal with. So adaptation is a critical element of health and well-being, and they basically determine that if a person is healthy, they have high levels of adaptation. And that's so, as I was thinking about, that's part of where, and I talk about it in the book, Do What Others Say Can't Be Done, about this notion of adaptation and being a first adapter rather than simply being reactive to your situation. So being reactive is you just automatically, you stay within the status quo, you stay within, your fears take over, your doubts take over, your worries take over.
Woo!
But adapting is different.
Adapt rather than react, and don't let your fear and doubts take over.
Yeah.
Because they're usually imaginary, right?
Well, it can be. It can be real. I mean, there are real dangers in the world. There are real threats. There are real deceptions. There's real power games that are being played. So you have to understand them. But at the level of your identity, a level of who you are, and in terms of self-care and taking care of yourself, one of the phrases that sometimes you can think about is if you're feeling, so some people have a pattern of perfectionism, or they have a pattern of playing small, or a pattern of shame, or there's certain patterns that people have, emotional patterns, and one of the ways that you can begin to shift that is it's like you can't say, people say no to something. They teach you be able to stand up and say no, be assertive, say no instead of agreeing to something that's going to overwhelm you or do too much and burn out and so on. Well, that's all good and healthy and appropriate, but internally you really want to get to the place where I don't do perfection. My identity is I don't do that. And so then you have to find a new pattern, and you have to navigate differently. The neurocircuits have to find a different way rather than staying in this reactive, emotional, fear-based orientation.
Now, is there a way for a person to recognize, and I think especially since COVID, there's a lot of fear-based thinking going on. I think social media is contributing to it, and the mainstream media is contributing to it. contributing to a lot of fear-based thinking. Is there a way to distinguish fear-based thinking from more fact-based strategic thinking?
Well, one of the things is you want to test reality, right? Is that really true? Is it a lot of times we're telling ourselves stories, a narrative that's false. And so they're saying, well, I can't do that. Is that true? You can ask yourself. Well, or is it that you're telling yourself a story about that you can't do it? well, yeah, but, and then you get all the yeah buts. Right?
That's good.
But absolutely, is it 100% true? Is it 100% true, true that you can't do it? No, it's not 100% true. Therefore, you're telling yourself you have a false narrative, a false story about what you're dealing with. And so that's one way of testing is go, are you absolutely certain that it's true? Right? And so you have to bring it to this absolute kind of questioning. Now, sometimes if it's true, if you step off the sidewalk and walk into the street and you get hit, it's true. Don't be dumb.
Right. Got it.
Well, this is not to get rid of real dangers in the world.
Right. Okay. So you're not to apply that with actual, like, hey, if I jump off this bridge, is anything bad going to happen? Well, yeah, obviously, yes.
Yes. The answer is yes.
Right. But when it comes to indecision and opportunities to be strategic, this is where you want to implement this kind of test.
Right, exactly. So in my book, I talk about there are a bunch of games that are what I call status quo games. They keep you in the status quo. They keep you staying with the narrow and limited ways of doing things. So playing, for example, conflict avoidant. People who are conflict avoidant, you're not dealing with the conflict that may be needed to deal with. Not all conflict needs to be dealt with, by the way, but some whoops, there's someone on a bicycle avoiding me. That was good. Avoided that.
Now that's the kind of conflict you want to avoid.
Mm-hmm. You don't want to crash into people. So, but conflict avoidant behavior, playing small. A lot of times people play small when they don't have to. Playing a good soldier. So some people, I had a client who wanted to get a promotion, and he, when you looked at his pattern of behavior, remember a game is a pattern of interactions over time. It's a story that they tell themselves, which their objectives, rules, and things that they need to pay attention to is they were playing the good soldier all the time. They were just doing what they were told, and he kept saying, how do I get this bigger job? Well, go beyond just what's being told to you.
Right.
That's what they're waiting, and don't complain. Like you're complaining all the time about something, and they see you just complaining. This is different than the story I told earlier in my first segment. It's just somebody who was playing small all the time. So that's an example. Sometimes there's another pattern called Groundhog Day, what I call Groundhog Day, where you keep repeating the same pattern over and over and over again, right? So there's these different patterns that you have another pattern is called hurry up.
Okay.
Like that's a pattern that I have to deal with because I grew up in such a nerve-wracking environment. It's like, hurry up, make a decision, quick, let's go, right? And so it started to become a pattern, and it's like I need to have my nervous system be able to calm down it's called the vagal tone, be able to have the parasympathetic system rest and relax and be able to be available to deal with this situation rather than acting using your sympathetic system, which is necessary, but overactive.
Okay.
When you get defensive or you get angry or you get,
So is it easy to recognize the same game or pattern you talk about in your book about switching game boards? Is it?
Right.
Yeah. Explain what that means when we're switching game boards. What are the circumstances behind that and how that works?
If you're being in a status quo game board, like we were just talking about, you want to switch to a higher level game. The higher level game could be one of collaboration. So you could, for example, if you're with other people and you're trying to solve a problem, you don't act like you're one up, like you know the answer.
I don't like collaboration. Right? Collaboration is not fun. So, it reminds me of a group project, but I completely get what you mean. And listen, that's bad to say when you used to be a teacher, because you're supposed to use all different kinds of strategies. To your point, and what we talked about a little bit the first hour about stretching. And one of the things that goes on in teaching is teachers typically teach the same way they learn. So if you're like me and you're a teacher that doesn't like kinesthetic learning, like learning with movement, and you don't like collaborative learning, just, with learning with other people, then you're probably not going to teach that way. You're not going to use those teaching strategies in a classroom. That's a pattern, though, right?
Right. That's a pattern. So you could go, how come? Instead of using, remember earlier I mentioned that we tend to default to more of the same of what we know.
Yeah.
We stay within the familiar. So you go, well, I don't do it that way. It's okay that you don't do it that way, but are there consequences? Are there impacts? Are there, so for some people who in a business environment where in technology, where they need to collaborate with each other,
yes.
Or they're at odds with each other all the time. And so the collaboration, oftentimes, I was going to suggest or recommend the thing to say, a lot of the reasons why people don't like to collaborate is because they think they have to water down their idea.
Ooh.
And
okay.
You don't have to necessarily water down your idea. What you need to do is test your idea with the other person. So, for instance, here's what I believe about this situation, this project we're on. Here's what I would do. And then you add the following phrase. You go, do you see it differently? Am I missing anything?
That is genius.
Right? And so
that's very good.
So if you go, do you see it differently? Am I missing something? What are you seeing that I'm not? What happens is you invite them to question, challenge your thinking. So this is rare, right? This is because it's difficult for people to do. But if you do it, you change the dynamic. You change the game.
Absolutely, you change the game. Now, could that work in a situation where you're forced to collaborate? Because let's just be honest, we're adults, and even though I don't love it, I do it because I try to be an adult, even though I know I don't personally like it.
Yeah, we should talk about this, Melanie.
I try to be an adult and a professional, right? Even though I don't love it. So what I was going to ask is does the converse work? If you are presented with something that you absolutely disagree with, can that method also work? And you can say, well, you know what? I see it differently. Is that instead of saying that idea sucks, you're so dumb, could you say, you know what? I see it differently.
And you should say something, right? Just
right.
Because you should be engaged. The question is, hey, I have a different point of view, and let me tell you what about what you're saying makes sense, and what about what you're saying, why I would come up with a different way. It's not to water down your thinking. In fact, we want elevated thinking, right? And it's just knowing how to interact, change the game board. We were talking about changing the game. Change the game board, and it's not just about changing the game board to collab. There's another game beyond collaboration. It's called the multiplying game board.
Yes. Tell us about that.
Where you can multiply the outcomes, right? What's something small that can have a big impact? It's like you know what a trim tab is?
No, what's that?
A trim tab on a boat is a small rudder that changes the big rudder.
Okay.
And so if the Queen Mary needs to be turned, it has a rudder on it, and it's turning the ship But in order to turn that big rudder, there's a lot of power and force and gears that need to be adjusted. And so what they do is they have a small rudder that actually goes in the opposite direction of the way the big rudder is going. And that changes the game. That makes things go faster, or it shifts the direction. And so there's a famous architect Buckminster Fuller, who came up with this idea of trim tabs. It's what you're looking for. That's where you're looking for an elegant solution to a difficult problem, and you're multiplying the outcome. You go, this is about leverage. Where can you get the most leverage in a situation?
An elegant solution to a difficult problem. I'm going to hit my bosses with that one tomorrow, because we always have problems. I work for legislators, and there's always problems. But I'm going to tell them that I've come up with an elegant solution.
Well, then
it just sounds better.
Then you have to deliver, right? You have
to
Here's why this will make a difference.
Yes.
Here's why this is going to get more with less, right? It's about getting more out of using something less effort, more results, right? How do you go about doing that? How do we find a trim tab for the various problems that we all encounter?
That's key. That's what everybody wants. Now, we're up against a break, but I want to talk. We've talked a lot about encountering problems and decision making, and perhaps not having enough confidence or status quo and all of those kinds of things. I want to talk about the person whose pattern is actually overconfidence. Because as we know, they exist.
Right, narcissists.
Actually, that narcissists that always think they're right and know exactly what they're talking about, but they don't. How do we deal with those patterns? How do we address that when we see that on our game board? You're listening to Money Talk with Melanie. I'm talking with Dr. Steven Feinberg. We'll be back in a few minutes.
Money Talk with Melanie features entrepreneurs, CEOs, and politicos who are experts in their fields. Money Talk with Melanie. Money Talk with Melanie on 98.7 The Coast.
Want a dependable career instead of a job? Tax Mama is here for you. You can become an IRS enrolled agent and learn everything there is to know about tax practice and law with the Tax Mama. Right now, log on to irsexams.school to explore a sample class. The Tax Mama IRS enrolled agent course is accredited by the Internal Revenue Service for continuing education and may be paid by unemployment or social services agencies. Why wait? Don't just get a job. Get a career by becoming an IRS enrolled agent through the Tax Mama today. Visit irsexams.school now.
Money Talk with Melanie features lively discussions of a wide range of global, domestic, and kitchen table financial topics. Guest interviews include entrepreneurs, CEOs, and politicos who are experts in their fields. Be sure to listen up. This is important because it's your money. Your money. Be sure to listen to Money Talk with Melanie. Money Talk with Melanie. Wednesdays, 7 to 9 p.m. Eastern Time on 98.7 The Coast.
Money Talk with Melanie is brought to you by the Tax Mama, Eva Rosenberg. Visit taxmama.com.
Welcome back to Money Talk with Melanie. We're on with Dr. Steven Feinberg. We are talking about neurostrategy and metagaming, what it means to us, how you can recognize patterns and puzzles and apply that to win at the metagame, win at life, win in your profession. We were talking before the break, and I was saying that we mostly have talked about not having enough confidence, kind of avoiding hazards and coming up with strategic solutions when you think that maybe there are none, and how to navigate that by recognizing patterns. But before the break, I said, but we haven't talked about the person who has a pattern of always thinking that they already have it together, that their solutions are always awesome. I never have a problem making decisions because my decisions are always awesome. That's the game board that we're dealing with. How does the person recognize that may be the case?
Do they recognize that the other person is acting like they're the gift of God or something. Is that
Yeah,
what
well, does a person perhaps see that in themselves, especially if you are an executive or in a leadership position of some kind? Is there a way that one could recognize that in themselves and self-correct? Like the executive that you said, like everybody around them was thinking that they're always bringing a problem. Is there a way for us to do some self-analysis, to have some awareness and see maybe our pattern is always thinking we're awesome and we need to be more collaborative. We need to bring other thoughts in, that kind of thing.
Yeah, so mirror, mirror on the wall, who's the most full of it at all?
Yes, indeed. Yes.
I made that up, but here's the thing.
It was pretty good. It was pretty good.
Yeah, not bad. Here's the thing is these are sometimes referred to as the alpha styles or the alpha males oftentimes, right?
Yes.
People think they know it all and they're the chief in charge of everything and they're the final say and they're the first say and they're say and everything in between. This is counterproductive to the world of dealing with uncertainty. They can do it. It's like Succession. Like the movie show, the TV show Succession, where you have guy Roy doing everything, right? And it's really dysfunctional. This is nothing healthy about this. But our culture sometimes supports that kind of behavior.
Oh, absolutely.
I had a client, and he was the CFO of the company, the chief financial officer of the company. The CEO of the company hired me to work with the executives and help them in their leadership, help them in how they interact, help them to raise their game, help them improve their patterns of interaction, help them make better decisions, perform at a higher level, and in general, raise the game for the company and get better results.
Okay.
And he suggested to each of his direct reports, each of these other senior executives to go and work with me. The CFO comes to me before he comes to me. He looks at the CEO. He says, "Get rid of this guy." About me, he wanted to fire me. That met me.
What?
And the reason why he said, "We can't afford him. Our books. It's not." Prudent to have him paying this amount of money because you're not going to get the results from this guy. He's just going to talk to you and he's not going to really have an impact.
Wow.
Outcome here. And so the CEO said, well, meet with him once. Just meet with him, right? And the CFO was accommodated. Let's say kicking and screaming. He agreed. So he goes in, and I meet with him, and he wasn't asinine in his behavior, but he was absolutely the characteristics that you were describing of someone. I know the truth. I know the way it works. It's my way or the highway. They can't solve the problem the way you guys are trying to solve the problem. You can't solve for X. This was an expression that he used a lot.
Really?
We should, this is just the way it is. And so we chatted a little bit. I asked questions, probing questions that, to understand his game board and how he made decisions and how he approached things. And he kind of, he reluctantly answered my questions. And we ended the session, and I said, let's have one more session, just one more. Would that be okay with you? And he said, okay. So I knew he wanted to get rid of me. And he wanted to fire me. I mean, flat out. Right? And he wanted to tell the CEO that he was wrong in hiring me. And he wanted no one else to get the service because he thought it was a waste of time.
Wow.
So he was pretty fervent about this, Melanie. I came back to him the second time, and I had, those, when you go to conventions, they sometimes give you a name card that sits on the table, like a placard.
Yes.
So and it folds over in half. And so I took one of those cards and I wrote the following on it: 6,000,000, and I put a dollar sign in front of it, and it said $6 million.
Right.
And he said, we started. Said hello, sat down. What's that? I said, what is it? It's $6 million. He said, well, what's that? I said, how much money have you lost by acting the way you do and behaving the way you do and being so firm in your view that the two other firms that you've been with, this was in Silicon Valley, and people were, there were IPOs, initial public offerings, and he was involved, and he's a really smart guy. Let's not dismiss him in any way.
Right.
Ability, right? And he said, he pointed to the plaque and he said, $6 million. I lost because they fired me before the deals went through. I said, so guess what? You're CEO, and you guys are thinking about over the next period of, 6 months, a year, going public. Again, your CEO is considering the same move of having you go.
Oh.
So do you want to talk, or do you want to, or should I leave? And he said, stay here, let's talk.
So he definitely had a pattern.
He definitely had a pattern, and he had to understand what reality was from the point of view of his own vested interest. Right?
Whoa.
He realized that I had pinpointed the exact thing that was the game of patterns, the game board, and he was no longer in charge of, he couldn't just say, he could have gotten rid of me and said, I'll forget it. But he was smart enough. I had spoken to him in a way that was respectful enough, but also strong enough. These guys people in that way don't, if they think they can push you over, if they bully.
Exactly. You can't come at them soft at all, or they'll just bowl over you. Right.
It was like, here's the game. Here's the real game. Here's what's really going on. Do you want to play, or do you want to continue in a destructive, problematic, counterproductive way?
Okay.
So here's the upshot of that story: is I worked with him. He, step by step, we got better and better, and it took him a while to learn how to change his tendency to tick everybody off, be over, pushing around, and use some of the stuff that we've already talked about. Do you see it differently? Am I missing something? Or, tell me more about what you think. Little by little. And he ended up succeeding about 5 years later, after that company was successful. And he actually started his own company, and he was a CEO now of a company that he started. And he brought me in to work with his people. He said, you got to talk to this guy. He's really, you'll hear something different than what you expect to hear, right? And so I worked with him for many, many years with his own people, and to his credit.
That's amazing. That's an amazing story, but you have to think that people who are already on those levels, to speak to what you said earlier about the gentleman who said, I've learned everything, I'm good.
Yes.
I learned everything. So
right.
I don't need to learn. Like, I can't even imagine making that statement. Like, what kind of mindset is that? That's wild. Nope. I've learned all there is to know. I'm good.
A lot of people talk about mindset. I refer to it as mindsight. What's the level of your mindsight? Do you see possibility where others only see problems?
Ooh,
right?
So it's not mindset, it's mindsight.
Right.
Ooh, that's good. Because everybody talks about mindset all the time.
Right.
Right.
It's like, I don't want to be, if you're going to be a pattern buster, you can't be mindset. It's mindsight. It's like, where are you orienting towards?
Right. Okay. And when you're a guy like that is thinking, well, I'm the CEO, like I'm the big dog. I've been hired as a CEO 3 times, so I must be awesome. Never occurs to him that maybe he's not awesome.
Right.
Oh, that's good. That's
Right.
good.
I mean, it's like people. The people who narcissists never question themselves. Never. It's always outside of them. It's always dissociated. It's dissociated from them. It's they're wrong. I'm right. These are destructive patterns for not only themselves, but for the people around them and for the people that they deal with.
It's
And
funny that you bring that up.
role. Anyone with a leadership is in a leadership role that thinks that is really going to cause harm in the world.
And you're so right. And the fact that a lot of people like that can't see it is bizarre to me.
Yeah.
I'm like, and that gets back to what you were saying. It's sight, not mindset. It is what they
Right.
because they really cannot see. If you've ever dealt with people like that, they really can't see how they could possibly be wrong.
Yeah, it's a blind spot, right? We're blind spot, or you can't see what you can't see, right? It's a blind spot. It's hard to believe, when you're dealing with people that they can't, they have blinders on, or a blind spot, so they can't see it. They've never had the experience. I grew up sleeping on a fire escape in New York City because we didn't have money when I was a kid. And I got to see the world very differently than a lot of people who were, in other socioeconomic classes.
Do you think that people forget? I feel like some people may grow up like that, but then they hit it big, or however you want to phrase it, become successful, and then they pretend like that part never happened.
Right. So for some people, they don't want to remember that because it was so either enormously painful or they actually don't feel like they are beyond it inside themselves. The inner game is not that secure. It just appears they've put various structures around them to appear steady, but on the inside they're not as steady as they appear to be.
That's very good, and it's almost like you're looking at a game board from different angles. Like you're looking at the same game, but everybody sees it differently.
Right. So like I had one person who worked with the other C-level chief, the CEO, and he was a president of another division to work for him, and they brought in a new division, and they wanted this other executive and him wanted to get together. They said, yeah, there's some synergies. We can figure out some good business opportunities here. Let's work together. Can you set up an introduction to this new guy that you just brought in? He said, sure. And crickets. Nothing ever happened. He said, why didn't this guy introduce me? I'm here to generate more business, and they wouldn't do it. And crickets. And ultimately, he was playing a different game, and the game was, I'm in charge. No one tells me what to do. You do it when I'm ready to make that deal happen, not when you want to make it happen.
Oh my God! And you're thinking to yourself, why does it matter for the greater good? Like, why does it matter?
Right. This is what you're saying. This is the type of problems. This kind of dysfunction costs people.
And you never think about the cost. Like what you're bringing up is something, at least I've never thought about, that every interaction with that kind of person is costing you. There's going to be a cost to your company. There's going to be a cost to your life. There's going to be a cost to people who have the misfortune to be in your orbit. And that's a problem. We have less than a minute left. Tell everybody where they can get your wonderful book. You need to pick it up and learn a lot.
So the book is Do What Others Say Can't Be Done. It's available on Amazon. You can also go to my website and get a free chapter. The website is www.stevenfeinberg.com. It's Steven. Feinberg is F as in family, EIN as in Nancy, B as in boy, ERG.com. There's a free chapter there. And also there's the assessment free first adapters scorecard. and a free assessment to evaluate yourself. You'll basically be compared to world-class first adapters, how they answer.
See, don't say that. Now I'm going to do it as soon as I get home, and I have to get up early.
It's not questions. This is a new form we just put out, so we made. If we're a little bit late, tardy in getting it to you, we apologize in advance, but we'll get it to you.
That is excellent. Dr. Steven Feinberg, thank you for indulging us for a second hour at Money Talk with Melanie. We loved having you. Wonderful. Please go out and get his book. Thanks so much. You have a great night.
Okay, good night. Thank you.
Yep.
Bye now.
Bye-bye.
Melanie features lively discussions of a wide range of global, domestic, and kitchen table financial topics. Money Talk with Melanie on 98.7 The Coast.
Unemployed or underemployed? Have no fear, the Tax Mama is here. Fuel your best career move with Tax Mama. Tax Mama can help you become an IRS enrolled agent with our next live 6-month course beginning in May 2023. Or you can start now with on-demand courses. It's your career on your schedule. Job opportunities are plentiful. Tax Mama offers unlimited access to her tax mentoring portal with all the testing materials you need to overcome any test anxiety. Get your 3-year tax education in 6 months and become an IRS enrolled agent through the Tax Mama. Visit irsexams.school. That's irsexams.school now to get your best career started today.
Money Talk with Melanie features lively discussions of a wide range of global, domestic, and kitchen table financial topics. Guest interviews include entrepreneurs, CEOs, and politicos who are experts in their fields. Be sure to listen up. This is important because it's your money. Your money. Be sure to listen to Money Talk with Melanie. Money Talk with Melanie. Wednesdays, 7 to 9 p.m. Eastern Time on 98.7 The Coast.
Money Talk with Melanie is brought to you by the Tax Mama, Eva Rosenberg. Visit taxmama.com.
Welcome back to Money Talk with Melanie. I'd like to thank my guest, Dr. Steven Feinberg, who did a fantastic job for both hours this evening. Thank you, Mark, for doing a great job on the boards and coming up with that very quick solution in the second hour. Appreciate you. Appreciate everyone who is listening to Money Talk with Melanie, whether you were listening live or listening to it as a podcast. I appreciate you. The one and only Eva Rosenberg, thank you, Tax Mama, for sponsoring Money Talk with Melanie. Be sure to tune in to Money Talk with Melanie next week when we'll have John Baldoni. He's going to offer advice to business leaders in times of changes and adversity in the new book of his called Grace Series, Grace Under Fire, Leading Through Change and Crisis. And then we'll have Beverly Williams, partner at Wong Fleming in Princeton, New Jersey, who will discuss, do honesty, integrity, and reliability still matter? Remember, all of this is important because, after all, it's your money.